So let's just say it at the same time, my friends, these matches will change. And if you did join in with me, you're my new favorite person. Because that is just the way with life. One day we go to bed thinking X is the best match ever, then we wake up on Friday and go, damn it, I forgot about B. Oh my gosh, what about S? But since 2019, AEW has given us some amazing matches, so I, Simon Miller, thought it was time to sit down and go through some of the greats. And of course we put them in an order, otherwise what would we argue about? So get ready and let's go. Number 30, the Young Bucks versus Eddie Kingston and Penta from the June 30th, 2021 Dynamite. So we are going to start by using a really weird comparison, but in many ways, this was AEW's answer to Steve Austin versus Dude Love from Over the Edge 1998. And what I mean by that is that if you go back and watch that WWF bout, it is just an unhinged blast of madness, with frenzy being the name of the game. It was also basically the match that re-cemented what a World Wrestling Federation main event was going to be, so suppose if you were going to bottle that feeling and kind of throw AEW on it, well, you get to this. I mean, by this point, the Young Bucks were so obnoxiously flamboyant that I think Matt Jackson had created his hat out of crayons, and the tag team had done such a good job with the fans, well, the crowd was just desperate for them to get some comeuppance. The in-ring action itself was just pure drama with flair and danger added in for good mix, and during one spellbinding sequence, Nick Jackson just kicked Penta a lot of times. He then tried to bulldog him when all of a sudden Eddie Kingston ducked and backdropped Nick's head right into the top turnbuckle, and it made me all go wibbly-jibbly, especially because Penta was then back, and what did he do? He kicked him. Kingston quickly followed with a German release suplex when Penta hit the backstabber, and I tell you, the 1-2-ooh on that, Matt Jackson broke it up at the last second. Young Buck stooge Brandon Cutler then attempted to mace Penta, but because the masked man was able to slip out the way of Matt's grasp, Cutler essentially had a breakdown, so he stood there and continued to spray Matt with his legs shaking. I mean, that sounds ridiculous when I explain it, but I laughed out loud then, and I'd laugh out loud if I was watching it right now. This is when we had the elite hunter Frankie Kazarian too, who came out to balance the books, when finally we got a big old package pile driver, a 1-2-3, the baby faces were victorious. So it was goofy, exhilarating, a little bit stiff, and just packed with carnage, and in many ways you could describe it as state-of-the-art action. If you're also trying to get somebody else into AEW, well, it ain't the worst match. Number 29, Toni Storm versus Mariah May from Revolution 2025. So a lot of people wanted this match to headline this pay-per-view for good reason. If you want to talk about some of the best stories that All Elite Wrestling has ever told, well, you gotta go to Toni Storm versus Mariah May. Of course, it ended up being John Moxley versus Adam Copeland that finished the show, but Toni and Mariah didn't care, because they stormed out there, no pun intended. My gosh, they rewrote the rulebook. What's most incredible about it is that it only went 12 minutes and 55 seconds. We had no time to indulge in melodrama here, and instead had one single focus. It was time to kill. I mean, you'll be able to see on the screens right now just the amount of blood that flowed from everybody's head. And I tell you, there's something about Toni Storm when she does do this. It always ends with a visual that you could describe as beautiful chaos. It also added a bunch of emotion to the match and made you feel something, dare I say it. And Mariah was right on par with this too. She essentially had helpless rage to her, and at one point actually shouted out, excuse my language, hate you. Because the amount of minutes was so short too, there was just no downtime, and these two just wrecked each other like they actually had proper hate. It was essentially a proper Japanese death match after a while, and let's not forget when it comes to American wrestling, you don't often see female talents engage in this, so it just meant you were hooked. We also do have to point out that it was based on months of build, a world championship, and characterization. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that's what wrestling's meant to be. This was flipping excellent. Number 28, FTR vs. the Young Bucks on the April 4th, 2022 Dynamite. So some people right now will tell you that they didn't think the FTR vs. Young Bucks series hit the expectations that were pretty lofty to begin with. It's more than fair if you do think that, but when you revisit all these matches in hindsight, well, I tell you, they are pretty flipping good. If you fancy doing that today, I would go back to this second match in the rivalry, because even though it was announced just days in advance, Matt and Nick Jackson, Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood marched into Dynamite. I'm gonna be that guy, you'll have to forgive me. They created magic. I mean, aside from a lightning quick exchange of pins, we had Dax smashing Matt with a pile driver, and almost every single 1-2-ooh was met by fans going, well, how the flub was that not the ending? They had this down pat. It was probably relentless as well, because it was just you go, I go, we all go. And by the time the tag klaxon had gone off and everybody was doing a shootout, the Young Bucks somehow found another gear, and they were just flip-flopping all over the place. Nick even cut off a powerplex attempt by flooring Cash Wheeler with a top rope Hurricane Rana, and it's just that action, man. I don't understand how they kept this up. And also, just to break the fourth wall, they had all these moves in their head. How the flub did they remember them? The best twist unfolded just before the finish as the Bucks prepared to execute the Meltzer driver because Dax Harwood caught a springboarding Nick Jackson mid-flip and he blasted him with a Liger bomb. Once again, as the fans say, that was awesome. So if you are rolling your eyes at me right now, please just do go back and give it a second go. It reaches a level. Number 27, Eddie Kingston versus Bryan Danielson on the October 29, 2021 Rampage. Eddie Kingston and Bryan Danielson from moment one until the end wrestled a flippin' stunning pro wrestling program. The dynamic they had was just perfect because of course you had Danielson, who was the vastly superior technician, but then you had the everyman in Kingston, who not only did fans just love, but he actually made you believe he was gonna kill you. At this point too, Bryan had made it very clear that he didn't view Eddie as a worthy opponent, so, well, he was acting like a smug and vicious prick about it. That just wound up Kingston, who rightly so took this as an insult, so all of a sudden we had a flawed hero. It's 2025, man. We all love a flawed hero. Every time they did get in the ring, it just got better and better too, but I particularly like this one from October 29, 2021, mostly because of Eddie Kingston's facial expressions. It goes from terror to fear like I don't give a damn, and even when he has been beaten to a pulp, well, you just don't think he's ever gonna give up. Of course, Bryan Danielson is perfectly on form too. There may never have been a better in-ring competitor. There are some real heart-pounding momentum shifts too, especially when all of a sudden Kingston takes his Phoenix down to fight back. And when his desperation truly sets in, he grabs the American Dragon and just DDTs him right into the mat. It also peaks perfectly because all the best noises come towards the finish. They don't outstay their welcome. And by the time we do get the 1, 2, 3, well, surprise, surprise, the fans erupt into a massive standing ovation. When you know, you know. Number 26, MJF versus Darby Allin from Full Gear 2021. This was during a time when Maxwell Jacob Friedman had to keep reminding people, I know I don't wrestle that much, but when the bell goes ding ding, well, I'm going to prove to you that I'm pretty damn good. He was also making it clear that he was going to go for the World Championship because he ticked all the boxes, and he was the best heel that AEW had. On this night, though, he was taking on Darby Allin, a man who could also lay claim to a lot of what I just said. He was on the other side, he was a babyface. I think both walked into this match too knowing that you needed a good guy and a bad guy, so Darby just outwitted Maxwell each and every single time, to the point MJF got super flustered and tried to punch him right in the face. MJF also fell foul to the whole, well, I am in control, so I am going to start posing, and it's not like you had to wait before somebody else got their revenge, because Darby Allin just did that amazing torpedo dive and wrecked this dude. Once again, the fans went crazy. I'm gonna say this had big action set pieces. Sure, I don't know what that means, but if you weren't familiar with AEW and all of a sudden you saw these two brand new dudes, well, you're likely going to be interested. Of course, eventually, MJF went to use Darby's skateboard, and it was Allin that actually stopped him. This opened the door for MJF to get the cheat win, but both guys had made their claim. They were going to be massively important for AEW going forward. Number 25, Hangman Adam Page versus Will Ospreay from Double or Nothing 2025. So this one likely should be higher up the list, but I just thought it would be nice to throw a recent one in there for your brain. Hangman Adam Page and Will Ospreay basically proved to everybody they were the faces of the company when they had one hell of a banger of a match. This had everything too, because of course they were fighting for the #1 contendership, and nobody actually knew who was going to win. I talk about this all the time in my videos, but if you can have a contest that is just drowning in jeopardy, you sit there the whole time scratching your head going, well, Will could get the victory, or maybe it is Hangman. I don't know, I better watch. Keeps you on edge. In terms of the actual going-ons too, they just merged their styles brilliantly, and some of the near falls here too. I mean, you even had Hangman getting a 1-2 following big pressure, and that tied into his feud with Swerve Strickland. This one had the depth. The finishing sequence as well, when they were just reversing everything before Hangman did get the final buckshot lariat, was brilliant. What did they do afterwards? They did shake hands, and it all connected to what was going to happen at All In 2025. So when you can have a match of this quality, and it also speaks to the past and plans your future, well, you gotta mention it somewhere. And somebody actually told me the other day it's their favorite ever AEW match. Totally get it, man. It was pretty flipping good. Number 24, The Elite versus Hangman Adam Page, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds from All Out 2022. So a lot of people forget about this one, which is why I wanted to throw it in there. I suppose it was a different time for AEW given who was involved, but every single person came out here swinging. It was also during a time when Hangman Adam Page had finally left behind The Elite because he felt sympathy for the Dark Order, and given that those guys kept picking on his new friends, well, he was like, well, no, that's not cool. I'm going to come back and punch you in the tummy. It didn't just go down on pay-per-view either because it was something thing to do we built to this. And what I really like about it is that it didn't really strive for any spectacular creativity. It just wanted to get a good match done while also getting across the story. The sheer speed of the thing at the start soon morphed into a big fight feel, especially when Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page were drawn back together. And don't forget their tag team run. And really that was the centerpiece of the match. When the Cleaner and the Cowboy did lock eyes, once again the crowd couldn't believe it. Here we go. It's a stupid thing for me to say, but it really was quite brave given that it ended when John Silver pinned Kenny Omega with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. And let's not forget he did that when he reversed the one-winged angel. Sometimes you need the underdog to win, because the next time you have an underdog match you can believe in them too. So while this may have left your brain, it actually did a world of good for AEW going forward. It ruled. Number 23, Riho versus Nyla Rose from the February 12th, 2020 AEW Dynamite. So this is what I'm talking about. We could probably redo this list in a week's time or get your opinions and nobody would mention this, but somebody has to. It's one of the best AEW women's matches ever. By this point, Nyla Rose just totally understood her character as the absolute monster, and there was only one way to play this. When you saw Nyla looking at Riho, the size difference was somewhat laughable. If you wanted to compare it to something in the most ludicrous terms, you could actually do it to a video game boss fight. You are the small person trying to take out the big person, so what are you going to do? You're going to chop them down like a tree. At 1.2, Riho just sprints across the table to nail Nyla with a drop kick, and at no point does Rose waste any of her bumps. In fact, she times them perfectly, and when she does get knocked down over and over again, you can feel the fever pitch in the room. Oh my gosh, Rio's actually gonna do it. Given that she was tiny too, at one point Nyla just chucked her from the top of the turnbuckle, and it kind of looked like Riho was half dead. And even the Snapdragon suplex that Nyla Rose took, well, it just works, man, because by that point, everybody was dialed in. From nowhere, Nyla then tried the one-winged angel, or at least a move that looked like that, which also made you go, what the flub? And as soon as Riho got back in control, she hit her foot stop 3 consecutive times, but flipping Nyla Rose kept kicking out. Rose then stormed through her with a spear and got the powerbomb victory for the 1-2-3, and that also made her the brand new AEW Women's Champion. This is an undercooked gem, and it deserves more love. Number 22, Jamie Hayter versus Hikaru Shida from AEW Dynamite Holiday Bash 2022. The women's division in 2022 was a long-standing conversation for the internet wrestling community, and that did make sense. Kind of felt like AEW was still trying to find their feet with it. That's why it made it even more confusing when Hayter and Shida went to the ring and produced this absolute barn burner. Why can't it just happen far more often? It really was phenomenal as well, because the thrill of watching a wrestler become invincible before your eyes was like anything else. That's exactly what Jamie Hayter did on this evening. She felt like the best wrestler in the world. The intent behind everything was deadly, especially when Hayter threw that lariat, and you can still see that today. Here, Shida continues to duck it over and over again, because she knows if I get hit with that, I'm dead. The sheer speed of her counters too are absolutely brilliant. It's a bit like wrestling tennis. You also had the fact that it was a new champion going against the old ace of the division, and at one point Jamie Hayter even went for a moonsault, and she totally missed. Shida then blasted her with a 3-count knee, and at the very last second Jamie does kick out. I mean, obviously we could probably mention that in every single match on this list, but when you get a near full right, well, it works. Shida also picked up Hayter after this, but Jamie's HP was at 0, so she slumped to the ground. Actually, it was a massive ruse. She had secretly taken her med pack, she had tricked Shida, and when she smashed out a Death Valley backbreaker, I think some fans audibly gasped. They'd gone. I suppose the best way we can break this down is just calling it hard-hitting high action. That sounds like some kind of dumb tagline. And Jamie Hayter successfully retaining her AEW Women's Championship here did her a world of good, because she had just come from an absolute war. Number 21, Chris Jericho versus Jon Moxley from AEW Dynamite Quake by the Lake. So in terms of how many times these two have faced off, this is probably the best possible version. I mean, they had wrestled before and headlined Revolution 2020 when Jon Moxley became the World Heavyweight Champion. That had to be done, but for me, this one was better. It was when Chris Jericho had decided he was going to wrestle under his Lionheart persona for a while, and that got the people in instantly. I mean, let's face it, they were nostalgic for his pants. He also proved he could go back to his CMLL days. He busted out some technical lucha libre, and by this point, Mox just had his brand new character down. I mean, he was so violent, even if he had decided to call his heavy style Death Jitsu. I mean, whatever works. Arguably the most famous spot of the match is when Jericho finally applied the Lion Tamer to Mox and held it there throughout the commercial break. Luckily, I live in the UK, so I got picture-in-picture, and I can tell you, Mox's selling was incredible. He acted like he was about to die. It also gets super stiff towards the end, because I would imagine in the back both had gone, let's try to kill each other, and maybe this just blew everybody's expectations away. When you do that, it does come across as a better match. Moxley also kicks out of the Judas effect, and nobody expected that, which you learn from the massive pop. And the finish, well, was a little bit disgusting. Mox applied the match-winning bulldog choke with such a grip that Chris Jericho actually went red. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it looked like he was going to die. And if the bell hadn't have sounded, well, that may have happened. Once again, I think that's the vibe they may have been going for. Number 20, Will Ospreay vs. Takeshita from Revolution 2024. So sometimes when going through the best matches of 2024, I don't even bother to mention Will Ospreay, because really, you should invent an entire list for him. He has his match style down. It was also an advertised dream match at the time because Takeshita had been pushed as the new hero, whereas by this point, most people would be like, well, you know, William Ospreay is one of the best wrestlers in the world. It was just after Ospreay had signed for AEW, so fans were desperate to this. So Tony Khan was like, alright, you could have it at Revolution. If I was going to come up with another dumb term here, I would call it turbocharged athletic wrestling. And it's essentially what would happen if Street Fighter was real. Some moments are also impossible looking, and while I know that sounds totally over the top, I do not understand how Ospreay continually bumped for Takeshita's Germans without losing his head. If it had been like the medieval ages, this would have been a torture device. Williams' physical timing was also pretty much perfect here, but Takeshita just matched him beat for beat. And even though the Blue Thunderbomb Oz Cutter still didn't work, because it is the least devastating move in all of sports entertainment, it looks so damn superb, and then Takeshita killed Will Ospreay with a crunchie. I suppose the only negative here was nobody thought that Takeshita was going to win, because again, it was Will Ospreay's first proper match under this banner, but sometimes things are so good, who the flub cares? Ever since then, Will has gone from strength to strength, and Takeshita has proven to everybody he's one of the best. I can't imagine a time this would ever be boring. Number 19, Hangman Page vs. Swerve Strickland from Full Gear 2023. So not only is this one of the coolest matches ever, you also have to call it one of the most disgusting. Now that's going to vary opinions, of course, but in terms of what these two set out to do, well, they couldn't have nailed it harder. Some people would even go as far to say that it was more grotesque and unhinged in a level rarely seen in American wrestling. Once again, I think that was the plan. On the off chance that you haven't seen it and you are learning about it first from me, here's just a few things that happened. They used a barbed wire wrapped steel chair and smashed each other. The cowboy, who was out for revenge after Swerve had invaded his home, stapled his kid's finger painting to his cheek. And then seconds later it happened again, and Strickland decided, nope, I am going to no-sell a staple gun. He looked like he was totally insane. Barry Barricade was also being involved here as they just slammed each other into it with no regard. And yes, the final one I will give you is that Hangman Adam Page drank Swerve Strickland's blood. There's nothing else I can say about this. If the image on screen doesn't do it for you, nothing is going to. Some people will say that it was a shame that Brian Cage, who was hanging out with Swerve, helped out at the end, which is not something you expect on pay-per-view. But it did mean that Strickland was able to wrap a chain around Hangman when it actually looked like he was trying to choke him. And honestly, the whole thing was pretty much disgusting. Wrestling is meant to be compelling TV though and make you feel something, and my gosh, this gave you all of the emotions. And given that this was a Texas death match, the rules were you had to answer the count of 10. Yeah, Swerve had just strangled the cowboy, so he wasn't able to get up. Nobody really won here and nobody really lost. They just went out there and did crazy things to each other. And now look, we are 2 years removed as me talking, and they are still getting mileage out of this. That's some pretty impressive stuff. Number 18, Hangman Adam Page versus Bryan Danielson at Winter is Coming 2021. They went 1 hour, because of course they did. This is the wonderful madness of Bryan Danielson. Who cares, it's TV? Let's do it anyway. It was also a way to try and cement Hangman Adam Page as an important champion because it's a tale as old as time itself. Let your guy fight and show true grit. Fans were warm to it, especially in the internet age. We all praise it after the fact. You could tell it was going to go long due to the moderate pace of where they began, and the build absolutely ruled. Danielson had outwardly questioned why we should respect Adam to begin with. I mean, what had he ever done apart from win the title? And so what? We've all done that. It carried on during the match too, because Bryan tried to control Page. He had the stamina, he knew the deal, he was not going to be moved. Danielson himself was just at the peak of his powers, and some of the counters are ridiculous. The timing of the thing couldn't have been more perfect, and Hangman, well, he gets it. He sells the whole thing on his pained face. He has never experienced anything like this before. When he did figure it out, Bryan lost it to the point he moved away from his own game plan. He started to jump from limb to limb, just hoping something would click. And can you believe it? It didn't. To Page's credit, he had it sorted by the end as he continually goes into dodge mode, but yeah, the time limit does hit that 60-minute mark, which just meant we were going to have to do it again on pay-per-view. That's pretty damn smart. Number 17, Will Ospreay versus Darby Allin on the 18th December 2024 Dynamite. There was a lot of excitement for this, I think just because both Will Ospreay and Darby Allin know who they are as wrestlers. If they both brought what they had to the table, good grief, we were in for some dinner. The sheer sense of urgency was nuts, which I suppose tied into the TV format, and of course Allin was fighting from underneath instantly. He had gone for a coffin drop to the outside, and the way his body hit the ring apron, which is the hardest part of the ring, I honestly don't know how he continues. Ospreay being the bigger man added to this, and when he went full William and increased his speed by 78 miles an hour, some of the chain attacks here. Darby matches it all by selling it like death too. I mean, especially his back, he acted like he didn't have it anymore. The code red into the hidden blade has to be watched 67,722 times to try and work it out, which they do again with a Stormbreaker back into a code red. 1-2. Ospreay made sure to draw the fans in with his usual, maybe I should do a Stars Clash to the outside, and then he just destroys Darby anyway, and again, you've got to watch the bumps here, they are horrible. We all forget this was a Continental Classic match too, so the win really did matter. The fact Allin surprised Will to get the points, that's just the best. Helped the whole tournament as well. Now you just didn't know what the other results were going to be. Number 16, the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers at All Out 2021. You can get as mad as you want, but the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers at All Out 2021 was quickly described as one of the best tag team matches of the modern era. I suppose recency bias could be a thing, but there was more to this, my friends. People were moved. The true genius was that on the one side we had the flashy moves and the whole you go, I go, we all go, whereas the second part was how real it felt. That sounds silly here and you should get mad at me, but go and watch it. It meant something to all four of them. Penta was on fire after selling emotional and physical pain, including seeing fragments of his face through his now torn mask, and somehow that just made him the coolest man on the planet. Do not forget that all of that came after a thumbtack sneaker to the face. It was such a 180 as usually Penta came across as unhinged, whereas now he was the vulnerable one. That then affected his brother Phoenix too. It was one for all and all for one. It worked on the fans, they sort of got disgusted by the fact the Bucks just wouldn't stop, and Matt and Nick sort of hinted at that too. Where is the line? And what if we've gone past it? It ends with the Lucha Brothers winning the tag titles and crying all over the place, so all of us were gone, water coming out of our seeing devices. As said, for a split second, this was just the most legit thing ever, and it hasn't aged a day, so yeah. It's one of the best no matter what. Screw time, absolutely. Number 15, CM Punk vs Eddie Kingston at Full Gear 2021. Do these two really dislike each other? I don't know. That's how good it was. It started years before in independent wrestling, as we were told, but the real shift on AEW TV is when Eddie Kingston was so vocal about being dicked over by Bryan Danielson, he accidentally interrupts a pre-planned CM Punk promo. Surprise, surprise, CM Punk didn't like that. The years of discontent between the two instantly came back to the fore, and their face-to-face on Rampage is legendary. I mean that too. If you like to watch wrestlers talk to each other like all of this is on the up and up, boom, this whole thing is fantastic. Eddie explodes with rage even though he starts sarcastically, but because Punk knows how to push his buttons, I think at one point Kingston actually tries to eat CM's face. That sounds dumb, but once more you have to see it with your own eyes. Everything Kingston does feels real somehow. He is special. It made sense too, because we all have work colleagues who we think are sanctimonious assholes, and others that feel like they're complaining for the sake of complaining. This tied into the match itself because it was just a fight. Dare I say it was perfect. Even before the bell, Eddie hit his elbow finisher, and then he laughed. He just wanted to hurt this guy. It then becomes a massive scrap, and it's so much fun. They are also two people that sell it all on their face, and it's so underrated it's ridiculous. Are you looking for something different but also totally real from your wrestling? Well, I've found it. It's unique too because it only lasts 10 minutes, and if nothing else, it is proof that modern wrestling doesn't just have to focus on one thing. CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston worked, and the joy is that it always will. Number 14, Santana and Ortiz versus the Best Friends from the 16th of September 2020 Dynamite. Here's some nerd chat for you. I recently worked a show with Ortiz and got to tell him how much I loved this match. So that was awesome. He was a good dude. Along with Santana and the Best Friends, they all did the unthinkable too. In 2020, when fans had seen everything, they managed to have a parking lot brawl, which actually made some think, what the flub is happening? I mean, it was the template for how a match like this should go. Even Mick Foley would have enjoyed this sort of brawling. All of the over-the-top moments are earned too because they spend so much time just brutalizing each other, and the parking lot is there to enhance, not just be something cool for the background. Another car is used as a jumping platform as Crimea River glass is all over the place, and I would call this creatively gruesome. It's just so gritty, and yes, it feels like four guys who don't like each other. AEW even managed to get some comedy in there as Trent's mum Sue picked up her boy before flipping Santana and Ortiz off and driving away. It didn't take away from it either, it enhanced the whole thing because it's genuinely funny. Let's also remember we did this in front of no fans due to the pandemic. Really is tremendous stuff. Number 13, Willow Nightingale versus Kris Statlander at All Out 2024. Do you know how we know this was brilliant? Because where it fell on the card meant everybody facepalm and go, oh no, they've got no chance. And Willow Nightingale and Kris Statlander just saw that as a challenge. My gosh, they absolutely smashed it. You also knew this was going to be a classic within seconds thanks to the opening exchange. And I find it baffling this isn't a forever feud. We talked about Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page, and they deserved such a program. Well, I think we should be doing the same with Willow and Kris. There's also a fact this was a street fight, so they took it to levels that would make you go, what the flub is happening here? Without wanting to sound like a dingus, it was just so damn violently beautiful. I mean, some of the spots were pretty damn creative. It's all about execution, of course, but we even had Willow smash a light tube over Statlander's head, so Kris just popped back up and drove Nightingale off the stage through a table with a spear. The bump off that one will make you cringe. It looked like Willow Nightingale was dead, and the absolute fire up from both guys towards the end. Let's just continue this as our catchphrase. You damn well think they want to win. There just wasn't one wasted spot or, oh man, I gotta get my shib in. Every single thing was positioned so it did tie into the finish. And when we got a 1, 2, 3, well, this place went nuts. We also do have to give a specific shout out to Kris Statlander, who I think made a debut here because she got thrown crotch first into some thumbtacks. Probably just move on now. I don't care who you are. That hurts. Number 12, Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks at All Out 2023. So I am not trying to take anything away from Ricky Starks here, who did have some true highlights in All Elite Wrestling, but this one has been included so we can praise one of the best ever, Bryan Danielson. Because much like a Bret Hart from back in the 90s, Danielson was just able to look at any of his opponents, figure out his strengths, move his weaknesses to one side, and bring out of them the best match they've ever had. If you want to call Bryan Danielson a wrestling savant, well, that's correct. This gets even more interesting too, because on this night, Ricky was meant to be wrestling CM Punk. That did not happen for the reasons that you are thinking about, so when Bryan stood in at the last second, well, you kind of wondered what we were going to get here. Obviously, the fans were going to be annoyed because they wanted to see CM Punk. Danielson is so damn good. Well, I think we all forgot about it. The American Dragon had also looked through the card and realized they were going to have to pull out something big here. So really, and forgive my language, I think he essentially killed Ricky Starks. Because at one point, with Ricky suspended in the Trio of Woe, Bryan charged at him with multiple consecutive drop kicks. And well, you can see this for yourself. It looks like Starks' neck breaks and his whole head is just bobbing there like a scarecrow. Given that it was a strap match too, Bryan Danielson just absolutely bloodies this guy, and I mean that literally. Both of them have the red stuff all over their skull. That just made Danielson feel even more intimidating though as he growled at Ricky Starks, and yes, Rick played his part too towards the end of this when he too found his second wind. Well, you just wanted to cheer for the guy. I also want to make sure I give a shout out to the facial expression that Ricky Starks pulled as Danielson did choke him out. I understand that sounds terrible, but if the idea of such brutal matches is to make you feel something and give you some emotion, well, bravo Ricky Starks, bravo Bryan Danielson. If you walked in right now and called this some sort of elaborate torture porn, to be honest, I don't think I can argue it. Number 11, Jon Moxley versus Wheeler Yuta on the April 6, 2022 Rampage. Now I understand this is a random one to throw in there, but there are so many unsung heroes in AEW. Well, let's use a list like this to sing about them, damn it. We can always change it tomorrow. Wheeler Yuta knows what he's doing. A lot of people call this the perfect television wrestling match when it did air in 2022, and that was mostly because Jon Moxley was on a tear and he refused to have a bad match. We all knew going in as well that Mox was going to rough up Wheeler because that was just their role. roles, but that's where the genius was. Old Wheels was clever enough to work out what was going on, e.g. John was going to kill him, but that this came from the fact that the Blackpool Combat Club, as they were at the time, had seen something in them. Hey, maybe they even wanted to recruit him. He decided to lean into that though, as he immediately flattened Mox with a suicide dive, and it wasn't even 2025. And of course, Jonathan loved that. He wants to get into a fight, and he just got the green light. Didn't really work out for Willow Yuta, because John Moxley then killed him, and really this blurred the lines. What the hell was the veteran now doing? Maybe he's out of control. It was so well delivered though, and Wheeler Yuta sold it so damn wonderfully. Everybody in the building, and you can hear this in the noise they make, starts to ponder, wait a minute, is Yuta actually going to win? No, he didn't, because it was John Moxley that had his hand raised, but Wheeler put in such a good performance and was so aggressive after the bell had rung, right to the point he got in William Regal's face, it sent one big, very obvious message: you may not thought I could have been a star, but I think I just proved you wrong. Now, yes, ever since then, I don't really think that AEW has capitalized on this in the way that they could have done. That's not what I'm talking about here. I am talking about having an idea and then executing it on the evening. And this one could not have been done any better. Number 10, MJF versus Bryan Danielson from Revolution 2023. So once again, we go back to this idea that some people have about Maxwell Jacob Friedman, where they pretend he's not a very good wrestler. It's not true. He's a superb wrestler, as he proved on this night at Revolution 2023 when he got in the ring with the GOAT Bryan Danielson. It was an Iron Man match too, which means it does deserve extra plaudits, because as we know, we as wrestling fans sometimes will go, well, if they're going to go 60 minutes, I'll tune in at minute number 55, because it's only the last 5 minutes I need to care about. While I understand that if you chose to do that here, you were making a huge mistake, because the sea-soaring drama and the technical flair, well, it kind of blew your brain. And at one point, MJF blasted Danielson with a tombstone through the debris of a table. Just think about that for 1 second. There was also this electric tension, especially because nobody quite knew who was going to win. And even at the 50-minute mark, the fans chanted, "Fight forever." Now listen, I would have done that too. It's called mob mentality, but at the same time, some matches have to end. It was actually a silly thing to chant, because by this point, both MJF and Danielson were essentially dead. They weren't actually fighting, they were just selling. But that's what made it so damn emotive, there's that word again. When we did get to the final few minutes too, the score was tied 3-3, which made your heart do a double beat. And this is where Bryan started to go into his bag of holes, and he tried to submit the guy. What did Maxwell do? He sold that like he was about to be attacked by a ghost. The secret story that ran through the entire thing too was the fact that Friedman had taken frequent water breaks, and because he was so destroyed by the end, he was given oxygen to assist with his breathing. So have a guess what he did with that tank. He clobbered Bryan Danielson to win the match. It's hard to come up with an original Iron Man concept. These two went and did it. Number 9, Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door 2023. So you can put this at number 1, I would totally understand that. And really, even in 47 years' time, we will still be talking about Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay, because for my money, they changed the game. What I really want to focus on here is the theme of the video, and that is the near falls, because on 3 separate occasions during this Omega versus Ospreay war, they totally made you think that the other guy had won. It's some of the best 1-2 oohs you could possibly hope to see, and of course when that happens you all go, oh, and you kind of lose your breath a little bit, and that actually increases your adrenaline. You didn't realize. The first one is when Ospreay blasted Omega with the Stormbreaker, which AEW had done a great job of protecting, and I swear that Kenny waited until the 2.99 mark to move his leg to get it onto the rope. I mean, to this day, I don't understand how he did it. The second one is when Ospreay drilled Omega with the one-winged angel, and Omega kicked out at 1. So I've basically lied to you there, because I was talking about 1-2 oohs, but when Kenneth did show this fighting spirit, well, I was watching this alone, and even I popped. I'm a weird guy. The real joy of it as well is that nobody kicks out of the one-winged angel, and even though it was Will Ospreay delivering it here, well, you just have that thought infused in your brain. Of course, Omega was also allowed to kick out of the Tiger Driver 1991, and yes, look, I know that was excessive, because Omega landed right on his head, but it really did draw you in. Ospreay got the win as well, mostly because Omega had got the victory in their first match over in New Japan, but these are 2 matches you should watch back to back. I'm not sure anybody else could pull it off in the same way. Number 8, Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson from Grand Slam 2021. I don't even want to talk about the moves in this match, because when Kenny Omega looked at Bryan Danielson and Bryan Danielson looked back across the ring at Kenny Omega, 15,000 people decided to cheer, and do you know what that damn Bryan Danielson did? He smiled. Kenny was then trying to hold back his grin, but he couldn't do it, and I felt it in my tum-tum, man, This is exactly the thing that I was waiting for. Seeing if they had played a game of chess after this, I would have given it 5 stars or 6.25 stars in the Tokyo Dome. Because why do we watch sports entertainment, man? Because we want to be entertained. It was also an incredible sight to see because people had been talking about these two locking up for years, and now thanks to AEW, we were finally going to do it. You can say what you like about All Elite Wrestling, but they were also allowed to approach it with their own styles, and that just heightened it even more. Of course, they then tried to kill each other because these two can't help themselves, and one of the powerbombs on the outside, I became Bryan Danielson's dad. I was worried about his head. I think that was Bryan's intent though, because he just sells his heart off during this. And yes, when he gets smacked in the brain with a V-trigger, he acted like his old injuries had come back to haunt him. I genuinely had a conniption. Speaking of that running knee too, the one that Omega hit down the rampway may be the best one that has ever been done. And the sheer creativity through this, well, I actually don't think anybody else could have come up with it because you needed Omega's thoughts and you needed Danielson's ideas. They of course went to a draw at the 30-minute mark because they weren't going to be separated. And that's how you know this was quality. We all sat there and we were fine with a tie. That is not an easy thing to do. Number 7, Sting and Darby Allin versus the Young Bucks at Revolution 2024. So once again, I like my wrestling when it is filled with emotion. And on this night, Sting, Steve Borden, the legend, the icon, walked away from the wrestling ring forever. And man, I cried my eyes out like a baby. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. It was damn wonderful. Him teaming with fake son Darby Allin added to this too because they had quite the bond. And we actually had Steve Borden's real children in this. It was like one big family affair. The Young Bucks, as always, just knew exactly what to do in order to make this feel like a massive deal. As did Darby. He climbed to a massive ladder and he threw himself through a sheet of real glass. You see the blood pouring out of his back instantly, and because everybody was dialed in, because again Sting was retiring, well, it does something to you, man. This is what it meant to the guy. The worry going into it is that Sting was such a nice dude, he didn't want to retain his tag team titles, and I totally get that. The tradition of the business is that when you do decide to give it up, you make sure you put somebody else over, but I, to this day, have not met one wrestling fan that wanted to see it, and you want to know why? Slap your head? Because we all love Sting, and we just wanted him to have one last moment. That's exactly what he got too, and on his wrestling report card, it will finish with a W. This, as far as I'm concerned, is the ultimate retirement match. And if you have a legend on your roster that you know is going to be leaving soon, and you don't follow this, well, you're totally mad. It was awesome. Number 6, Anarchy in the Arena at Double or Nothing 2022. Just look at Eddie Kingston here. He is wearing a Yankees top, he has blood all over him, he has a gas canister in his hand, and if I had told you this was a screenshot from GTA 6, you'd believe me, and I'm pretty sure that is the tick box checklist for a good wrestling match. These days we understand what Anarchy in the Arena means, but we weren't 100% sure back then, but it was the perfect coming together of serious wrestling and goofy wrestling, which is for life, and every single individual in this understood that, and I still can't believe they increased it to the level that they did. Calling it a plunder match isn't even fair because the characterization, the feuds that were delivered on here was ridiculous, and every single person in it deserves all the credit for taking this platform and throwing it into the sky. I'm going to go on record and say this match was special, and it was most definitely insane, but it was structured that way. I think AEW wanted to walk away going, I think we've just seen a brand new stipulation born, and my gosh, I didn't get enough of it. Bryan Danielson also decided just to punch people in the face and is happy to receive them back in his jaw too. And do not forget that we took ideas from DDT, Memphis, and even PWG to create this melting pot of 2024 action that you probably weren't going to see anywhere else. Witty, horrifying, entertaining, exhilarating. This instantly felt like the gnarliest, most awesome shit you'd ever seen in your damn life. And that's why AEW keep doing it, man. And for my money, it should become a yearly encounter. That is the level. Number 5, Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. at WrestleDream 2023. Let's tie this into sports. You know there are two teams rocketing up the league, and they both have a very similar style. So what the hell is going to happen when they do meet in the season? Well, they'll probably become Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. That's a weird analogy. Now this would have been talked about for ages because of course they were considered the best technical wrestlers in the world, and there was some serious expectation here. In order to meet them, Bryan and Zack were going to have to deliver something amazing. And of course they did it, and really they did it with a dragon screw leg whip. Because Sabre Jr. decided to give one to the American Dragon that was so disgusting, everybody thought he'd torn his ACL. Bryan Danielson was in cell mode. If you go back and watch this now, you will notice a few things too. They never venture outside, neither man ever scales the top turnbuckle, and damn it, there's no near falls. The whole narrative of the thing was going to be, okay, people do consider us at the top of the tree, so one of us is going to exert their technical brilliance over the other. And do not forget what the Wrestling Observer newsletter calls their technical award. It's the Bryan Danielson Prize. The funniest part to that is, do you know who's won it the most? Zack Sabre Jr. So all of this was just thrown into one big package as it became a tapathon, and who was going to slap the mat first. And I think that's one of the reasons I liked it. I wouldn't say this kind of style would be my chosen one if somebody put a gun to my head, but they were able to do it at such a high level, I was like, how can you even argue? It also stands out a mile in modern wrestling because most people do enjoy flippy dippy doo-dah. I'm going to be dumb again. I kind of go into a hypnotic trance when I do watch this. Don't understand how they did 70.8.9% of the things they do. Number 4, Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes at Double or Nothing 2019. So obviously, as I am recording this video, I don't know what the edit is going to be, but it would surprise me if the images that are about to come up on your screen aren't all colored down to black and white, because that's how gruesome yet brutal yet beautiful this match was. Now do not forget that Double or Nothing 2019 was AEW's first big pay-per-view, so they needed to tell lots and lots of people and wrestling fans this is the kind of thing that we are going to offer to you. In the end, they were looking at Dustin Rhodes, who was barely holding on, because he was drenched in blood. If you want to call this unsettling devastation, you can. It looked a little bit like he was gonna die. This was the intent though, because I think the Rhodeses had decided they wanted extreme emotions to come out during this, and it's just the intensity. I mean, even before Dustin was selling all over the place, it feels like it's do or die for him. And my gosh, he took it literally. Cody Rhodes also proved that he could be a main eventer and hold up any company should you give him the tools. And let's just keep it nice and simple with 3 words. This was amazing. It's what gets me excited about Rhodes potentially being a heel in WWE. He is such a brilliantly cocky prick. Of course, you have the real life connection as well that was Dusty Rhodes joining them together. And a few people said something silly after this, but I'm gonna say it too. AEW really did go and bring wrestling back. Number 3, Bryan Danielson versus Swerve Strickland All In 2024. So this one could be a bit biased by me, but I was lucky enough to sit second row at All In 2024, and when Bryan Danielson beat Swerve Strickland for the AEW World title, damn it, I was crying again. I'm such a geek. Swerve deserves all the praise for this too, because he understood the assignment. We all want to make sure Bryan Danielson goes out on a high because he is going to be retiring in a few months. So what do I have to do to get him there? Well, it was just playing the most intimidating final boss ever, and one that Danielson could chop down. Remember when he gave him the Psycho knee and Strickland dusted it off? My gosh, it's etched into my brain. Bryan Danielson too is just the ultimate heart on his sleeve, guys. Even when he was doing his yes chants down the entrance, you could feel it. And the last 5 minutes to this, well, I'm going to say it again, and you're allowed to get mad, it is flipping perfect. Bryan also understands a simple part of wrestling, even though he's able to do the more complicated too. So he just had the piss beaten out of him here before he hit his big finisher 1, 2, 3. Then he brings his family in the ring too. I mean, if you were cold to this, I'd go to the doctors, you don't have a heart. I also think even in defeat it raised Swerve's stock as well, because everybody realized how good that guy was. And as for Bryan Danielson, who again was going to leave AEW and the world of wrestling shortly after, that man, nobody could compare with this guy. He had proved it to every single last human. He's always going to be one of the best to do it. Number 2, Will Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson at Dynasty 2024. It's another one of those matches that when it was done, individuals rushed to the internet to write one very specific sentence: I think I've just seen the best match of all time. Now, it's not easy to watch, mostly because Bryan went and did it again like Britney Spears. Because he knew that we knew he had a history of neck issues, he allowed Will Ospreay to drop him right on his skull with the Tiger Driver. I can see it right now, and my gosh, I'm feeling a little bit oogly boogly. There's also some incredible false finishes in this that even when you know the result will get you, that's how dumb they are. And when they get to the final moments towards the end of the match, well, everyone just feels like a bigger deal and then a bigger deal and a bigger deal. I mean, you can barely keep up with it. There's also a sequence during this that may very well be one of the best in history, where each guy tries to go for a series of moves, and yet they arrive at a stalemate. It's like 2 of the best boxers throwing punches, but neither can land. And of course, this told the ultimate narrative. Oh my gosh, they've studied each other. What the flub are they going to do? The sense of struggle was there for all to see. When it didn't work as well, Danielson went back to just picking limbs apart when he applied the yes lock. And the look on his face when he did do this, he was desperate to get the win. I think because he was worried that if Will Ospreay did escape, well, what else was he gonna do? If you can be bothered to, I would go and watch this, but just keep your eyes on the crowd, because there are a few people that are totally transfixed by this. I don't think they can believe what they're saying. I think you have to call it an all-timer and a cast-iron classic, and it was a match that was better, even though it had massive optimistic predictions going in. I mean, somebody called it transcendent, which is a little bit silly, but why the flub not? The fact it went 32 minutes 40, but felt about 12 also summed it up, and yes, it was Will Ospreay that got the victory here, and that's because Bryan Danielson understood the assignment. We've got to get this guy over, kid. No problem. Number 1, Kenny Omega and Hangman Page versus the Young Bucks from Revolution 2020. Now, one of the reasons everybody here at WhatCulture felt like we should put this tag team match at number 1 is the year. AEW in 2020, well, man, it just hits different. And look, you can go on the internet right now and read some reports. It happened again. This is one of the best tag team matches in pro wrestling history. Now, do not forget the tag team wrestler over on the American scene had not been treated great for 2 decades. So the fact that AEW walked into Revolution 2020 and gave us 30 minutes of absurdly dramatic and well-worked action, well, who could get mad at that? You also had the fact that all men were deeply close and essentially helped create AEW, and yes, that was tapped into during the build, when, essentially, you also saw ugly professional jealousy. Because at first it was meant to be friendly competition, when all of a sudden Kenny Omega and Nick Jackson thought they felt something different, and the tension between Hangman Page and Matt Jackson, I mean, you just wanted them to kiss. There was real resentment there. They've also always been at the forefront of the modern hybrid style, if we dare call it that, so here, given they were on a major stage, they just thought they would execute it better than they ever had done. Here comes another stupid word. It was breathtaking. It's almost like they had a telepathy that existed between them. They went full Dark Knight as well because the escalation was impeccable, and Hangman, who was still furious about being murked off the whole time, just decided he would wreck Matt Jackson's back. And do you want to know why? It's because over in New Japan, Matthew had suffered a terrible back injury, and given that Page knew that, well, he was going to take advantage. What a horrible person. That in turn made Matt and Nick more aggressive because how dare you do that to us? And in fact, we're going to hit you with one of your personal moves, and they took Kenny Omega out with the golden trigger. I don't have time to explain that here, but believe you me, if you were a geek, you fell on the floor. Kenny sold that too because when he did kick out, he had a look of utter disrespect on his face. And let's just say you were an alienated, lapsed WWE fan or even someone that gave up on TNA, this was the shot of the arm that you've been desperate for. Page even uses the one-wing angel, which is both a nod to his partner and also a bit like flub you weren't nice to me. And yet at no point did Kenny try the buckshot lariat. I think he was worried about the Cowboys' anxieties. Omega even started to foreshadow his massive heel turn that was going to come soon after this by also being the best babyface. Again, you got to see it to believe it. And I also think many people were surprised when Omega and Hangman held on to their tag team championships. Most assumed it would go to the Young Bucks. So given that we are at the end of this video, I can be super over top and tell it to you straight. Wrestling is meant to be a love story deep down at its heart, with a little bit of tragedy thrown in. And here you had the best of friends that had totally fallen out, and really that story is still going today. So this match is damn special, and we are proud here at WhatCulture to have it at number 1. That was unnecessary, and I shouldn't have done that. Before we do wrap up as well, I do have one special mention because I think it should always be in lists like this. Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker, lights out. Do not forget this went down in 2021, which kind of ties back into the Mariah May, Toni Storm stuff we were talking about earlier. It was so brutal and so bloody, a lot of people looked at each other like, damn, what is going on? So they always deserve their flowers, and who knows, maybe we will get the blow off one day. But yes, I just wanted to sneak it in. Now, of course, listen, plenty of matches that should be in this list have been left out, but that's for you to comment below, when you can also like the video, share the video, and subscribe. When you are done, make sure you click the video on the screen to get even more love in your life. But listen, my friends, I appreciate you staying with me. Thank you for being awesome, and I'll talk to you soon.